And now Freddie puts a jolt into one to left field. There is nothing Andujar can do with that one. And the Royals are on the board first. And Freddie hits one into the left field corner. And he's got another one. And Schumann hits a fly ball center field. Isbell is there. And the Royals win the final game of the series to avoid the sweep.
And, yeah, you don't want to lose 3 in a row to a team that had lost 9 in a row until you arrived in Oakland. And that's the last time the Royals will play baseball in that stadium unless the Royals and A's meet in the playoffs, which doesn't seem very likely with the A's well under 500. Welcome to the Sports Ticket, brought to you by Kiefer Brothers Automotive in Beloit, your home for fast, friendly auto repair. Royals finish off their 3-game set with a 3-2 win over the A's. All their offense coming from solo homers. Freddie Fermin with 2, and Bobby Witt Jr. with the homer that broke the tie and gave the Royals the win in the 8th inning. And Matt Contrero on the home runs by Fermin.
He's swinging the bat really well. I mean, that's part of the reason we were trying to get him some at-bats and DH him. And, you know, he works extremely hard. He's always prepared, puts together really good at-bats. So I'm really happy for him.
Royals ace Seth Lugo got no decision, struck out 8, gave up 2 runs in 6 2/3. He was doing great, gave up a 2-run homer there in the 7th. James MacArthur, an inning of relief, got the win. Royals are 42-34 in the season. They head to Texas, take on the defending World Series champion Rangers to start a 3-game series. The Rangers are 34-40. That'll be tonight at 7:05. Brady Singer, 4-4, ERA 3.39 on the hill for the boys in blue, but obviously it's the Royals have not been swept this season, which is a very good thing, and they avoid getting swept by one of the worst teams in the American League. So the Royals will try to make it 2 in a row tonight as they head to Texas. All right, Dusty, we got a couple of local athletes will be competing in the All-Star Games in Salina coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, Kansas Basketball Coaches Association holding their annual All-Star Games tomorrow night at Mabee Arena at Kansas Wesleyan University. As he said, 2 area athletes from the immediate area will be competing in the girls' contest. Senator Dakota Kattenberg chosen to play on the Gold Squad in that game that tips off at 6 o'clock. And then also on the boys' side from Beloit, Bryce Beisner will take the court, I believe, for the final time as a high school player. I don't think there's anything after the KBCA All-Star Game. So Beisner will play for the blue team tomorrow, and the boys' contest starts at 8 o'clock. Also of note, Ellsworth's Will Cravens is playing for the gold team in the boys' game as well. Again, everything starts at 6 o'clock girls' game, 8 o'clock boys' game tomorrow in Salina. You can find the full selections and more info on the KBCA All-Star Games at ncssports.com.
All right, best of luck for all 3 of them and competing there tomorrow. Major League Baseball made some history last night with the Giants and Cardinals playing the league's first game at Rickwood Field. For those who may be unaware of the park's significance, Rickwood Field is located in Birmingham, Alabama. It used to serve as a home to the Negro Leagues. Birmingham Black Barons, also fittingly, is where the late Willie Mays began his professional baseball career. And it was pretty cool what Fox did. You know, we've talked about media entities kind of dropped the ball the last few years. I think Fox hit a home run yesterday. They did a wonderful job with the coverage. They had Reggie Jackson on, and actually those guys were willing to be quiet and let Reggie Jackson talk about the racism that he dealt with as a player, which was some very powerful stuff. If you haven't seen it, there's a 3.5-minute excerpt that's on social media, and it's just Reggie talking about what he dealt with as a black baseball player when he was in major leagues. And it's very powerful stuff, and there will be some language that may or may not offend you, but he's just talking the truth of what he went through. And I thought Fox did a wonderful job. All Alex Rodriguez, David Ortiz, Derek Jeter, Kevin Burkhardt, and the producers, whoever's in the ear, let the guy talk. Mm-hmm. And I know if this was on ESPN, I'm pretty confident with certain people that there was no way that he would have been not interrupted. So that was pretty cool. And then they did, a half inning of black and white back as if it was 1954 broadcast. That was cool. The game at a minor league park and the throwback stuff. And, they had the Field of Dreams, had that a few years. The game there up in Iowa, that was really neat. And this was very cool. And it's just interesting, the timing of it all. Right after, this was scheduled a year ago. This has been planned out, and all of a sudden, it's just ironic that Willie Mays passed away just a few days ago, and that's where he started his professional baseball career. So there's a big tribute to Willie Mays. He honored a lot of Negro League players and black baseball players from back in the day, and honored the history of it. They had Bob Kendrick with the Negro Leagues Museum and Hall of Fame there in Kansas City. He was telling stories on the broadcast about Willie Mays and others, and so it was really well done.
Yeah, I didn't watch all of it, but I saw parts of it. And yeah, Willie Mays was supposed to be there, and then probably like a week before, they said he wouldn't be able to make it, and then he passes away, and so that's kind of disappointing on that side of it. But it is crazy that it happened, that he passed right when this is going on. Mm-hmm. You talk about Bob Kendrick, man. You talk about a man that you could just sit down and just let him talk. Yeah. Just let him tell stories about the Negro Leagues and everything that has happened in this country's history with black baseball. And it's insane. And just I've been around him in person a few times just doing that, and it's crazy to hear the stories that he's got, and the stories that people just don't really know unless you want to know them, unless you want to hear him talk about them. And you can get a lot of that. I went to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum too, and it's like you can't even imagine all the stories that are in that place. I mean, they say not to take pictures, and then they're like, you can take pictures. And so I had to take pictures because I couldn't sit there. I didn't have enough time to sit there and read everything that was in there and all the stories. And it's crazy, everything that went down at that time in our country's history. But it's really cool to kind of see it brought to light and kind of, at least for some way, retroactively let them have their day in the sun. You know what I mean? Like to get the respect and be represented the way that they are, not only with this, but also with the stats being added to baseball, to Major League Baseball history as well, and all of that stuff that goes into it. It's really cool to see that, I think. No, I don't know if everybody agrees with that, but I think it's super cool.
No, I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
it was well done. Well done. If you're going to criticize certain entities, you should be willing to acknowledge when they do something right. And Major League Baseball did that right. Yep. And Fox did a great job with it last night. So, but you need to check out the Reggie Jackson stuff.
I have not seen that. I'm gonna watch that at some point today.
You definitely worth 3.5 minutes of your time. Get the longer version of 3.5 minutes. Don't watch the 2 minute. Watch the 3.5 minute, because there's even more. Yeah, pretty powerful stuff. Coming up in 30 seconds, KU football player in big trouble. We'll explain.
State, regional, and national sports talk on your schedule. The Sports Ticket Podcast. Subscribe via Apple, Google, and TuneIn Podcasts or sunflowerstateradio.com.
I'm Elijah at Kiefer Brothers Automotive in Beloit. Hot weather is here. Is the air conditioning in your vehicle nice and cold? If not, we can help. We have the training and equipment to service vehicle AC systems of all types, including the new refrigerant and late model vehicles. We offer same-day service on air conditioning with no appointment necessary. So don't sweat it out. Give us a shout. Fast, friendly service for your air conditioner can be found at Kiefer Brothers Automotive, just south of the courthouse in Beloit, or on the web at KieferBrothers.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Ticket, brought to you by Kiefer Brothers Automotive in Beloit, your home for fast, friendly auto repair. So I saw this story on ESPN coming over on my app, and the headline was Browns football player released due to accident. So instead of just read a headline, I want to read the story. I'm glad I did, because it involves somebody that, if you're a KU football fan, I'm like, whoa, that's not good. Mm-hmm. Cleveland Browns defensive end, or formerly Cleveland Browns defensive end, Lonnie Phelps. Remember him? Outstanding player for KU a couple years ago when they were finally able to turn some things around. Probably their best defensive player. He was charged with drunken driving Wednesday night after police said he crashed his SUV into a restaurant in Florida. That's not good.
No.
Phelps also faces a charge for damaging property following the incident at the Red Shoe Island Bistro in Key West. The Browns waived Phelps yesterday. Phelps is only 23, was taken into custody after refusing to cooperate with officers. Photographs reportedly from the scene were posted online by TMZ Sports and showed a vehicle wedged into the side of the restaurant. Reported damages are estimated at $300,000. Lonnie Phelps signed with the Browns as undrafted free agent in May of last year. He spent last season on their practice squad. Cleveland signed him to a reserve future contract in January. He played college football in Miami of Ohio for 3 years, and then, of course, played at the University of Kansas in 2022. Had 23 sacks in 41 career games, and now he is unemployed, but that's the least of his concerns with what he did. Decisions, right?
Yeah, it's...
Lucky he didn't kill anybody.
Absolutely.
I've said that about anybody with the DUI, and I've got friends of mine that have gotten DUIs. I've got People I respect have had DUIs. I've got family members with DUIs. Extended family members had DUIs. Not everybody in the family has a DUI. Mm-hmm. Please don't say that. But there are people that I know that I think have learned from their mistakes. And at the same time, it is, it's true of anything. Like if you get behind the wheel where you are. I mean, how many times do we get behind the wheel where we're dead tired and we almost doze off from time to time?
Oh, it happens more and more as you get older. I'm going to tell you that right now.
And you shouldn't be behind the wheel, or you should pull over, or you should let somebody else in the car drive that can drive. So same thing in regards to if you're too inebriated and to drive, whether it's drugs, alcohol, whatever it might be, or you're on some kind of prescription and you're feeling loopy. And there are some people that have had these situations and they have walked away kind of skirt-free. There's not really a lot of consequences for them. Some people have, some major consequences they got to deal with. And part of it is luck. And let me explain what part of the luck is. Lonnie Phelps is very lucky that he didn't kill anybody. Rashee Rice is very lucky he didn't kill anybody. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't alcohol. His was racing. And there are people that have done what Rashee Rice did. There are people who have done what Lonnie Phelps has done. Many people have over the years that have been behind the wheel, drove drunk, or gotten behind the wheel and went racing, got behind the wheel, fell asleep, got behind the wheel, and they had, like I said, they could be taking a painkiller or something, or even a prescription drug, and it's made them weird. Whatever the case may be, there are many people that have done all of those things or one of those things, and there are many people that, luckily for them, nobody's been seriously hurt. They might have to deal with the legal system, and then hopefully they'll learn from mistakes. And there's some people that do the exact same thing, but unfortunately for them, they kill somebody. Mm-hmm. Or they hurt somebody. And so Lonnie Phelps, obviously he's got some things to deal with, but he's very lucky that he didn't kill people in a restaurant or somebody on the road or the sidewalk. And let me go back to a young lady that just retired from college basketball, Ava Jones, who was at Nickerson and was going to Iowa, just signed to be at Iowa. Of course, we know how great Iowa's been. She could have been a part of this amazing run, and she was, but she wasn't on the floor.
Could have been on the court. Yeah.
And her career was robbed because of a drunk driver in daylight, during the day, when they were at a basketball tournament. Where was that? Atlanta?
Louisville.
Louisville, that's right, yeah. Louisville. And they were just walking on the sidewalks, and this person was drunk in the middle of the afternoon, killed her dad, messed up her entire career and life. Now, she sounds like she has enough support and strength, and she's going to bounce back, is bouncing back, but nobody's going to replace her dad, right? Oh. Nobody's going to replace her basketball career or the injuries she's got to deal with going into the future. And all she did, her and her family, were simply walking outside
off time on the street.
Between games, which I've done many times myself. Yeah. And I remember that happened not too long before my son and we flew to Atlanta. He had a basketball tournament there for SSA Hoops in Atlanta. And I remember we were walking to the Braves game, and we had to do a lot of walking up the hill on the sidewalk, and there's no big guardrails or anything. Mm-hmm. And I crossed my mind, I think I even said it out loud. I'm like, we take this for granted, just walking to a Braves game. We trust that nobody's going to just pop the curb and run us over. We have no idea. Mm-hmm. And they obviously didn't that day. So there's an example of somebody that drove drunk and killed somebody and ruined somebody's career, playing career, and robbed her
of an entire family.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And robbed a young lady's amazing opportunity she could have had playing college basketball at the University of Iowa. And because the person drank too much and made a wrong decision. And so that happens, and that happened. And it could have easily happened to Lonnie Phelps. It could have easily happened to people that I bet all of us know somebody that's driven drunk that maybe didn't get a DUI, but they were intoxicated. Mm-hmm. And I would be willing to bet most people listening to this show have driven when they shouldn't have driven at some point in their life. And we're lucky and fortunate enough that they didn't get pulled over to get a citation or a ticket, but they also were lucky enough to not have run into somebody or killed somebody or whatever the case may be. Okay? So then you say to yourself, there's certain people who've gotten tons of DUIs, or they've done tons of really bad, they race all the time. How in the world are they not in trouble? How in the world did they not have to deal with the thing? How in the world have they gotten so lucky? And then one person, maybe one time in their life, partied a little too much, had a great time, and then made a big mistake and got behind the wheel. And next thing you know, something horrible happened. There's no explanation for it. Some people maybe are luckier than others, but there's always ways to spin things. So, you can sit here and you can hear that story about Lonnie Phelps and go, well, whoa, man, you feel sorry. Lonnie Phelps, I might it might end his dreams of playing in NFL. And if that's what you grab out of that, then I think that's sad. But you have the right to have that thought. The other thing, you can be sitting here like, oh, man, Lonnie Phelps is a lot of trouble. He's going to have to deal with a lot of stuff. Well, he's actually, that's the least, that's actually a great thing that happened to him from the standpoint of you run into a restaurant, you didn't kill anybody, you didn't hurt anybody. Dear Lord, he got off easy from that standpoint. See how we can spin and rationalize these things? Like, well, it's horrible this person got arrested for this. Yeah, but maybe it was a blessing in disguise that happened, because if that person had not been pulled over under the influence of whatever it was, had they not been pulled over, how do you not know if they kept driving, they would have killed somebody? Maybe that officer saved people's lives. People don't think about that, do they? No, usually it's pretty.
They don't think about it until somebody's life is lost.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And so there are people like Lonnie Phelps that have killed people driving drunk. There are people like Lonnie Phelps that have driven drunk and never been pulled over, or got lucky, or maybe knew a cop and they were lenient. Who knows what it was? And then there are situations kind of in the middle. I guess this is in the middle, where Lonnie Phelps drives drunk and runs right into a Florida restaurant. You got to be pretty damn drunk to drive into a restaurant. That's all I'm going to say there. And who knows how many other times he drove drunk and never got caught. That's the other scary part.
Well, yeah. I'm pretty positive, and I'll say 99.9%, because there might be that 0.1, but the people that get a DUI have done that before and not gotten the DUI.
Yes.
Like, this is not, for most people that are getting DUIs, I'm going to guess it's not the first time they've driven under the influence. So
I know of a person. Yeah. I know a person that's had, I think, I've been told, at least 7 DUIs. Now, how in the hell can they still be driving? I have no idea. Yeah. I don't get it. I don't understand how. And they've had 7 DUIs, and it's like, and you sit there and go, wow, that's a lot of DUIs. And that's how some people look at it, as like, that's a lot of DUIs. My 2 thoughts immediately, I have 3 quick thoughts when I've heard that one. 3 quick thoughts when I heard that one. 1, how's he still driving? 2, how is he not in jail? 3, how has he not killed anybody or hurt anybody badly? And 4, so I have 4 thoughts. 4, how many times did he drive drunk when he wasn't pulled over? Mm-hmm. If he got caught 7 times, I bet you he drove drunk about 500 times.
I don't.
Because let me tell you something. If you got more than 2 DUIs or 1 DUI even, but I mean, there's people out there got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 DUIs. If you have that many DUIs, don't you think you have an alcohol problem? Don't you think you have a dependency problem of some sort? So odds are, if you're dependent that much on that drug, alcohol is a drug, then more than likely those weren't just the 8 days that you drank and every other day you didn't. More than likely you drank many, many times and were over the limit when you didn't get pulled over. And that is really, really, really scary. So when Lonnie Phelps, when I report this story today and telling you, I bring it up because 1, he's very lucky he didn't kill anybody. 2, I think about Ava Jones, who just now had to give up her basketball career. She was, trying to fight the odds and somehow play. And I just think of, losing her dad, and her mom was hurt and family members are hurt. She was hurt seriously. She's lucky she's alive. So she could spin it and say, don't feel sorry for me. Even though I'm not playing college basketball, I'm at least alive and I can move forward. And luckily not my whole family was wiped out. But their life all completely changed in so many ways. And they're just a family from Nickerson High School that were in Nickerson, Kansas, going to a traveling basketball tournament in Louisville, and simply were outside on the sidewalk and got run over by a drunk driver. Lonnie Phelps could have easily ran over a couple of families into a restaurant, or a family in the restaurant. So these are the type of stories that don't get much publicity, because it's like, oh, that happens every day, and we just throw it in as a headline. but I just want to bring a little attention to it.
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, when you're talking about people that have multiple ones, and I know people that have at least 3 or 4 that a friend of mine actually from college that I knew.
By the way, I want to just jump in real quick, and I just want to make this very clear, and I'll let you finish.
Yeah.
Why this country has not come up with a simple, it's not that hard. It's not that hard at all. Your first DUI, you lose your license for a certain period of time, okay? Whatever. Your second DUI, you lose it for at least a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years, I don't know. Your third DUI, listen, you shouldn't get to 3. But if you get to 3, you're out of luck. That's 3 strikes, you're out. And I could argue you shouldn't get 3 strikes. But 3 strikes, you're out, man. 3 strikes, you're out. If you're dumb enough to do it 3 times... And this is true. I mean, like I said, I actually have known people that are close to the 3rd. I have a friend, and I love him. He's a great friend of mine, and he has 2, and he knows he screwed up twice. Okay, but if he gets a 3rd one, I love him to death, but he should be done driving. That should be it. Because if you haven't learned from your first or your second mistake, and you heard the old adage, well, it's okay to make a mistake. Of course, some are costlier than others, but you should learn from your mistakes. And we always talk as coaches, it's okay to make mistakes, but try not to make the same one over and over. Okay, if you're getting multiple DUIs, you're not learning anything. And so whether it's my friend, whether it's somebody I don't know, somebody you know, somebody we all know, somebody we don't know, if you get to 3, I think that's it. Hang it up, baby. Somebody else can drive your ass somewhere because... driving is a privilege, man. It's not a right, it's a privilege. So I don't know why this country has never come up with a very simple thing, and that's probably because they're worried about selling cars. Well, if we get half this country don't drive, then we won't have as many cars to sell. I don't know what the thinking is behind it. But 1, okay, you screwed up. Hopefully you didn't kill anybody, hurt anybody. You deal with suspension and fines and whatever else. Second one, probably some jail time, fine, suspension, whatever. And your third one, sorry, boys and girls, that was the last time you drive. Next time you drive, you get pulled over, now you're going to slammer for a month or 6 months or a year because you're driving without a license because you should not be driving ever again because you were, didn't address your issues. That's my soapbox. Continue.
I can't add anything because you actually said exactly what I was going to say.
Sorry, I stole it.
No, but because in my mind, I'm like, how is a person even allowed behind the wheel after 2?
I agree.
That's in my mind. But again, I get the whole, there's a lot of things that are 3 strikes, you're out policy. So 3, absolutely, you're out. Like, no more. You're not driving anymore.
No. It shouldn't even be negotiable.
Yeah,
it's done.
And
you got 3, sorry.
I'm like... But for me, 2, if you're not out, it's a minimum 1 year suspension of your driver's license.
Yeah.
I don't like, and I'm with you. Like, we all make mistakes. I'm not sitting here acting like I'm perfect, and I've said this before, right?
Right.
Like, I can think of 1 or 2 times that I've been behind the wheel when I shouldn't have been.
Yep.
Whether that be this or whether it be something else, right? Like, I had an ear condition where, like, I'll be in the middle of driving, it'll hit me and I'll start spinning with my vertigo. And I'm like, I probably should pull over right now. But I'm also a mile from home and I don't want to throw up in this car. I want to get home.
Right.
And so that's happened to me before where I'm spinning, should not be operating a vehicle.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I got to get home because if I don't, I don't want to be stuck out here.
No.
So anything like that. But with this certain situation, it's like I'm not going to act like I'm perfect, and I've never, ever in my life done it.
No.
But I'm older now, and there's a situation in my time of my life where if I got one, there was no chance that I was going to be able to do something that I love.
Right.
And so I never even thought about risking it. Like, if I was going to drink, keys were going to somebody else, or I just was going to stay there that night. I did that multiple times. I just stayed where I was and got up in the morning and left. I know some people don't always have that luxury maybe, but hopefully, in this day and age too, like if you're, not around here, but if you're in a town at least even the size of Hayes has Ubers now. You know what I mean? Like, find something there that can take care of that. This is the day and age where it's even crazier when you're in a bigger place to have this kind of thing happen.
Well, and then even the flip side of how, we talk about, well, that could have been worse. And then the flip side of thinking too is if you do get one, okay, or, you're like, I don't even drink a lot. I just had I was out with buddies and I got busted, but then I got buddies that do this all the time and they've never gotten in trouble.
Yeah.
It's like, why me? Am I just unlucky? Well, Maybe so, but I would rather be the unlucky part there than be the unlucky one out of all my friends that did all these things. I'm the one that killed somebody, and they didn't. That would be the unlucky part, because they all could have killed somebody too. Any of us that drove, and I think most of us, and most of you listening, probably know of a point in time in your life where, and by the way, you could be listening right now and go, I've never drank a drop of alcohol. This doesn't apply to me. No, it absolutely, I guarantee you this applies to you. If you have been behind the wheel and you've started to nod off, you have put people in danger. If you continue to drive, and especially if you have an option, if you have your wife next to you or husband or somebody in your family that can drive, you should pull over and let somebody else drive. If you catch yourself nodding off for half a second, you know what happens if you nod off for 3 seconds? You're in the ditch. You probably overturned. Your family might die, or you might run right into the middle of a semi-trailer, okay, and kill other people. So you can sit here right now, if you're listening, go and get on your high horse and say, well, I don't drink alcohol. I'm all religious. I don't do this or that. I'll be willing to bet you were sleep deprived at one point in time. Doesn't have to be alcohol necessarily. Anything that impairs your driving, that's what we should really say. Anything that impairs your driving, you should either, one, hopefully take a break, stop at a hotel, get a hotel room. Oh, that costs money. Well, I think it costs a lot less than, I don't know, totaling your car or fixing your car or going to jail. I would guess, just a thought. And I'm saying this because it's happened to me. And as you said, as you get older, you tend to get a little more tired more often as you drive. I don't mind driving at all. I get annoyed by people who don't use their signals, but and people that pass me and then slow down and then don't have cruise control, but they do and they don't set it, and it's annoying. I can go on and on about the things that I don't like about drivers. And I'm not a perfect driver either. But I ain't going to lie to you. I mean, there's times where I've started nod off for a half a second, and I fought through it, and then I usually kind of have a second wind, and I'm okay. But there have been a couple times, probably in the last few years, where I'm like, and in fact, recently, there was a rest area when we were traveling. I pulled over the rest area, and we'd only been on the road for like an hour. And I didn't get a lot of sleep the night before. And I pulled over the rest area, and I said, honey, you're driving, because I'm about ready to nod off. And I have my 3 kids in there. This was when we were going to Arkansas for vacation last week. We left, and there's a rest area out, what was it, by Minneapolis, or before you get to Minneapolis. So I hadn't even gone an hour down the road. But my eyes were heavy, and I kind of fought it once I even got to the junction. I didn't get a lot of sleep, had a lot of things on my mind. And I pulled over the rest area. I said, honey, hopefully you're okay to drive, because I'm just, right now, I need to just close my eyes, get a power nap. And I did. And then she drove for like an hour or two, got past Wichita, and then we stopped, and then I drove the whole rest of the way, and I was perfectly fine. So maybe I learned from before when I fought through it, because I think what crossed my mind, and this is, as I get older, I get a little more philosophical, if that's such a word.
Philosophical.
Thank you. I just can't pronounce it.
You got it.
Yeah, I can't spell it either, by the way. But as I get older, I think about these things a little bit more. And so I'm sitting there going, if it's just me in the car, obviously I'm going to fight through it, probably still be an idiot, because I probably should still pull over the rest area. What I should do is lock my doors, have the AC on, let the car run, lean my head back, and take a 5-minute nap. That's probably what I should do, even if I'm by myself. But what do we do if we're by ourselves? We force our way through it, right? Because we don't have another option, or so we think. I just presented an option you have. Okay, you can even pull over on the shoulder if you want to, or off an exit ramp. And if an officer comes over and does, you can at least say, hey, sir, I'm just doing this instead of driving when I was going. I think they would understand a little bit. Now, if you pull over in the middle of the road, taking a nap, probably not so much. But the thing that crossed my mind was, I can fight through this and go through the rest area here, pass it. I can get the Salina, keep pushing it, see how far I can go. I have my whole family in this car. I have my 3 boys that I love to death, and my wife, who I love to death. I'm being a real idiot. And I had 2 people in the car that can drive legally. So I know my 10-year-old would like to try, but it crossed my mind, and I'm like, I didn't even hesitate. Like, no, there's a rest area here. This is stupid. And my wife drove. So this can apply to somebody that's impaired alcohol-wise, drugs, painkillers, prescriptions, lack of sleep, could be a physical ailment as well. You could have had surgery recently, and you're not very good at moving your foot reaction time from the brake to the gas to the gas to the brake, and that causes you to have an accident. If anything impairs you from driving, you should look at other options. And obviously, Lonnie Phelps did not.
Yeah. Listen, I travel everywhere by myself pretty much. And so I don't have
other people
that
to drive
second option to be like, hey, drive. So there's times that I probably force through when I should just pull over.
I bet we all do.
But there was one time when the first time I went down to that convention in Texas 2 years ago, I couldn't sleep, and I'm like, I got to get going. I'd been up late here doing things because of the wind and stuff messing up our satellite and all that. So I was here forever that night, and so I was about to I told my sister I was just going to meet her and leave probably from like Newton at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And like none of that was going to work. And so I just left from here at like 12:30.
Right.
And so I'm driving on the interstate and I cracked a bang before I left, right? Have an energy drink.
I cracked a bud.
Yeah.
Whoa, Dusty. Whoa. You're
That's counterproductive to our conversation.
Exactly.
I got an energy drink and it got me all the way to Oklahoma for sure. Right. And so I'm going south and I'm dragging. I'm getting closer to OKC, but I'm dragging, and I'm like, I can't do it anymore. And so I found a spot in Guthrie, Oklahoma at like 4. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, right when I pulled in to like a gas station out behind it, and did exactly what you just said. I cranked the AC, kept the car on, set my alarm for 15 minutes. I said I need a power nap. Mm-hmm. I set it for 4:15. Woke up at 4:15. It worked. It did what I needed to do. I got to Edmond, Oklahoma, got a little breakfast on one of your tickets you gave me from Whataburger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that.
And I made it the rest of the way fine, right? But I was at that point, that breaking point of like, I can't fight this anymore.
Yeah.
Like I know that this might take away 15, 20, 30 minutes even from getting to my destination, but I can't do it anymore. I'm going to fall asleep. I'm going to cause more problems than anybody wants right now. And it's worth losing the 15 minutes to say, hey, I got to stop.
Is it better for you to get to your destination a little bit late than not at all? Yes.
Absolutely.
And see, that's the thing that's really, that is annoying too in regards to when you drive, is people that are always in such a gigantic hurry and they have no patience, and that helps cause accidents as well. And I could argue that's impaired driving. That's between your ears, mental.
Yeah, exactly.
But we could go on and on.
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
Peeves.
But I'm just, that's an example of what I'm talking about, where I don't have a second option, and I've got to go. But it's still, you got to make.
But there are the point is there are options.
You don't have to.
There are options.
Just fight through it all. You can stop.
There are consequences, for all our decisions, no question about it. So Lonnie Phelps is got some issues to deal with, no question about it, former KU football player. This is Sports Ticket, brought to you by Kiefer Brothers Automotive in Beloit, your home for fast, friendly auto repair. Tonight, Stanley Cup Finals, Florida Panthers have another opportunity to close out the Oilers. After being up 3-0 in the series, Panthers have been outscored 13-4 and dominated in games 4 and 5. Now they're up 3-2 and got to play in Edmonton for Game 6 at 7 o'clock on ESPN tonight. Man, I tell you what, you lose tonight, you're looking at the whole Yankee-Red Sox situation all over again, where all the pressure is on the Yankees, and then the Red Sox blew them out in Game 7 back in 2004.
Hey, I have no dog in the fight, so I'm definitely pulling for the Oilers to win tonight.
Come on, stop it!
Make a Game 7 and have some fun.
Oh, wait a minute. You just want them to win Game 6?
I don't care if they win Game 7.
I
would like them to win Game 7, to be honest, to make the whole comeback happen.
You need to take your butt and you go to Canada, you un-American son of a brick. Are you kidding me? No. I know Canadians are nice people, and I know Canada's a decent country and all. I haven't been there. I hear it's great, and their fishing's awesome up there, so forth and so on. But I'm sorry, I draw the line. When you sit here and say, well, I don't care, it's okay. I'm actually cheering for... No, you cannot cheer. Would you cheer for Canada against the U.S. in the Olympic hockey game? No. You cannot be cheering for a Canadian team to win ice hockey, which everybody knows is America's pastime, and everybody knows that Florida has owned hockey for years, and that there's thousands of ice rinks in Florida. Hockey began in Florida. Do you not know this? The Florida Panthers have fought so hard for thousands of years to get to this point. And now you're sitting here cheering for the Canadians. Not the Montreal Canadiens, the Edmonton Oilers from Canada. That's just so un-American. You're a traitor to your country.
I'll tell you what,
You're
if
Benedict
Florida
Arnold.
fans don't even support their team, why am I supposed to? What are we doing here?
That is true. There were some empty seats. That is true. Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I'll cheer for the Oilers to win Game 6. Not that I care that much, but Game 7, I'll cheer for Florida to not choke it. But I would like the drama of a Game 7.
For me, it's like I honestly, whatever happens, happens. But I really would love to see at least a Game 7 here. Pull that drama all the way.
There's nothing better in sports than a Game 7. I'll tell you what, Game 7 hockey series are pretty dang good. And I saw that last year with my Kraken. And then, last year the Celtics were down 3-0 to the Heat and came all the way back, forced a Game 7, and it was in Boston.
Yeah.
And they couldn't finish it out. Tatum sprained his ankle, and the Heat found a way to get it done. And people had wrote off the Celtics after 3-0. They nearly pulled it off. So the Oilers, man, they can put a ton of pressure on the Florida Panthers if they can win tonight. Then they go back for Florida for Game 7, I would assume, right? All right, so good stuff there. The College World Series Championship Finals begin tonight. Game 1 at 6:30. That's going to be tomorrow night, not tonight. Number 1 seed Tennessee, they're the favorite against the 3 seed Texas A&M. It's an all-SEC best-of-3 series. I don't know how often they play during the regular season, how that all went down.
I actually didn't even look either, to be
I was
honest
kind of
with
curious
you,
about that because Tennessee's got some swag. There's no doubt about that. The Tennessee baseball team has some swag. Their manager came out and really went off about a question he'd been asked the day before about making the College World Series, about how it's a failure if you don't make the College World Series. And I tell you what, he had a great answer, although there are times he's done some things on the baseball field as a manager that's kind of honestly maybe incited some things. But he's a passionate, competitive dude. There's no doubt about that. I'm looking through here at their schedule, the Tennessee baseball schedule, to see if they play at A&M. I'm sure they did at some point. As I scroll through here a little bit further, wow, they play lots of games in college baseball. Yeah. Still don't see
60 or 70 by now.
Did they even? Oh, there we go. They beat A&M in one game, 7-4, and this is what happened. Oh, there we go. They had a 3-game series. No, that's not right. Oh, that's the upcoming thing. Okay, so that's their upcoming in the series with A&M. So they only play A&M one game. This is the problem with the big conferences now. You don't play everybody, and so how do you say you're the SEC champ if you didn't play everybody?
Had been the SEC tournament when they played them. Was the only time they played them. Yeah.
7-4 was the final. Didn't even play them in the regular season, and they're the two best teams in baseball right now. But at least they're going to play each other on the field and decide it on the field tomorrow night, Sunday, and possibly into Monday. But
they played K-State as many times as they played Texas A&M.
That's right.
Tennessee.
That's right. Tennessee beat A&M, and they beat K-State, by the way, too. The Lakers have finally reached an agreement with J.J. Redick to be the next head coach of the storied L.A. Laker franchise. Redick was an NBA analyst for ESPN after playing 15 years in the league. He's ascended very quickly from being a player, then being in the studio, and then being like the lead analyst on ESPN's NBA Finals coverage. And he's done a good job. And I think J.J. Redick is a very smart dude. I think he's very sharp. But now he's going to be the head coach of LeBron James, as long as LeBron doesn't opt out, which sounds like he's going to stay in because I think LeBron was okay with JJ being the head coach. They've been doing a podcast together, which people wonder about. There are a lot of talk that Anthony Davis isn't exactly thrilled because the other candidate was a guy he knew well and wanted. So now you got this LeBron versus AD thing. That hasn't happened before with LeBron, has it? Never. And so Redick's going to be the Lakers head coach, a 4-year contract, but as we know with Monty Williams' situation, Redick could be canned next year and then get all his money anyway. A couple things on this. So last night, I drove to Salina to meet a friend and hang out and have dinner with him. And I was coming back, I was flipping through the radio station and so forth and so on. And then I flipped over to ESPN radio real quick. And boy, that was a stupid mistake. And I'm sitting here and I know there's a little bit of a slower time now, but there are some other things to talk about, like actually. And of course they were talking about, J.J. Redick and of course they were talking about LeBron and the Lakers. I'm like, dear God. Okay. But we're spending just a little bit of time on this. J.J. Redick has never been a coach at any level.
No.
I have more coaching experience than J.J. Redick does. True story. A lot more. J.J. Redick, I'm not saying I could be head coach of the Lakers. Hell no. But I love to take it on and get fired a year from now. I'd love to do it. Sign me up. I'll do it for half price. I don't even care. I don't even know what he's making on this 4-year deal, but I'll do it for 50 cents on the dollar. I'll do it for 20 cents on the dollar. And I'll be happy to get fired. And I'll take the arrows. No big deal. Let me have 1 year, one shot. Let's just say, hey, LeBron, you're in charge, like you usually are anyway.
That's what you want anyway.
And then, if it doesn't work out, I get fired. Who cares? But Greg Popovich didn't have a lot of experience, obviously, but he had been in the front office. Mm-hmm. He'd done this and whatever. He was familiar with things. Now, J.J. Redick is familiar with the NBA. He's covered the NBA. He's played in the NBA, so forth and so on. So maybe we not giving him enough credit for that. But J.J. Redick has never had any kind of he's not been a part of any organization other than a player. And now he's going to be a head coach of not just a college Division II team. He's going to be a head coach of the L.A. Lakers with LeBron James, perhaps the GOAT, Anthony Davis, who's going to be a Hall of Famer as well. And this is after they've had a coach that won a championship, got fired 2 years later, a coach that was one of the hottest commodities as an assistant that got him to the Western Conference Finals last year. JJ even said in 2022 on the air that the Lakers are dysfunctional to a point to where it's not even a good job to take anymore because they don't have enough people in their organization to scout and do this and do that. I mean, and now 2 years later, he's going to be the head coach. First of all, I'm not a big fan of the Lakers, so I don't care if they succeed or not. J.J. Redick's from Duke. I despise Duke, so there's lots of reasons for me to cheer against this whole thing. Would I like it to blow up in their face? I think it'd be hilarious. At the same time, I do really like J.J. Redick because I think he is sharp. I think he will tell you how it is to an extent. I think he's one of those few people that will. I love the fact that he will stand up to, idiot talking heads like Stephen A. Smith and others and call them out. I love that. More people need to do that to these yahoos. And so I do. There's part of me I think that is kind of pulling for him to be successful. I think this is a setup for failure. But I wouldn't be surprised if he did have some success because, hey, if you have LeBron and AD, you have a chance. But he's going to hire a lot of people on his staff that have way more experience than him, clearly. That'll help him through this. There have been coaches that have not been head coaches before. Steve Kerr didn't have coaching experience per se, but he had been in administration and front office. Greg Popovich, we talked about. There's been a few others. Larry Bird, he was in, he had been a coach before. I don't think Isaiah Thomas, although Isaiah didn't go well. No. But so there have been examples of it. But to take over a storied franchise with perhaps the GOAT in his last year, that's a tough spot to be in, but J.J. Redick is willing to take it. Of course, he probably has many millions of reasons why he's taking it. And like I said, if he fails, it's no big deal. He'll still get paid after next year if he gets canned 12 months from now, and then they'll go hire Monty Williams because Monty just gets hired and fired and gets paid. And Monty Williams is actually a pretty good coach. He took the Suns to the NBA Finals a couple years ago. But it is interesting that a storied franchise like this is going with an absolute, complete unknown commodity that has no experience in the front office, with an organization, or as a coach at any level.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Is it that bad that nobody else wanted it? No, there was assistants, and one in particular that was interested, and they went this route. Very interesting. Now, is that LeBron pulling the strings here, or what? Some people think it is. Others say no, he's not. It's just that he's, JJ and him did a podcast together. There are a lot of players that do podcasts with other people and this and that. So I don't know.
It's like it for as long as this job was open, there had to have been a lot of different things going on behind the scenes. And then, because J.J. Redick was obviously mentioned a long, long time ago in the grand scheme of how long this has been going. Obviously, this hasn't been going for 2 months or anything like that. But, Darvin Ham gets fired, and there's been a bit of time in between with a lot of names that are talked about. Obviously, Dan Hurley was at the top of their list, and that's who they wanted, and he said no. But, it is interesting with a guy like J.J. Redick because he doesn't have the coaching experience, like you said. He doesn't have the front office experience. Obviously, like you said, he's went from playing to analyzing.
Yeah,
and that's it, and that's where he's at now. There's other people that have been coaches, and you mentioned a couple of them in Larry Bird, Isaiah Thomas. Now, Larry Bird, I think, did he have executive experience before?
I don't know. I don't know.
After? I can't remember. I know Isaiah didn't. I don't think he did. I think he coached and then had executive and then coached again, and it didn't work for him. But Isaiah Thomas and Larry Bird are two of the most well-known, best players that ever did this, right?
Yeah.
Another
Magic
example,
Johnson did for a very, very, very short time.
Another example of somebody that is coaching right now that actually just took his team to the NBA Finals was Jason Kidd, right?
Yeah,
that guy didn't have any coaching experience when he took over the Nets.
And Steve Kerr won championships, as we mentioned.
Yeah, and Steve Kerr, but again, Steve Kerr was a guy that did have executive.
Yes, he did.
And Jason Kidd had none of that,
right,
from what I understand.
I think so.
And so he's an example. But again, he's a guy that's, I don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame, but a guy that was an outstanding player, right? Like moves right away from playing to coaching basically.
Right.
And J.J. Redick is, I mean, he was a role player. He's not
a star.
He's not an all-star, possible Hall of Fame type guy.
Which you really
and I'm not
better
saying
off not having that.
Yeah, no, and I think those guys have more success. It's kind of proven that they do have more success. So Steve Kerr will be at the top of that list. But at the same time, it's weird to see. I'm not saying that's the right way to do it, is to go hire a Hall of Famer without any experience, but you just usually don't see it like this. You usually see the guys that are being hired to be a coach. You're taking a flyer because they're one of the best to ever do it, and they're the best in their era to do it. And so you're like, oh, let's hire this guy because he knows the game and he excelled at the game. And I'm not saying, and J.J. Redick had some years where he really did excel at the game, but was never that number 1, 2. Maybe most teams wasn't even the 3 guy probably. No. But he was a guy that was going to hit pretty big 3-point shots for you, and got actually, as his career went on, got more consistent even in a mid-range type game. And there was one year the Spurs were playing the Clippers. I'm like, I hate playing this dude. And it's like, let's get this win and let's move on. And so I know that he had success, and I think that actually it's a better idea to hire a guy like that as a coach, but you just don't see it happen in this way with guys that don't have experience, that were not stars in the league.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Steve Kerr was an all-star in the league. I mean, there's been other coaches that have done very well. In fact, you look at it, there's not really any, we've talked about this before, there's not any superstars that have become coaches that have been successful. Bill Russell was a player coach. That's the best one. But Magic was not a coach at all. The best one that was a former great player that actually was good, we could argue, is Larry Bird.
Larry Bird, for sure.
And by the way, Larry Bird was in the Celtics front office for 5 years until they accepted head coach of the Pacers. He was a special assistant, so he at least had front office experience. 5 years before he became a head coach. So even though he hadn't been a coach at any level, he had experience in a front office. That's something J.J. Redick doesn't have. Whether that matters, I don't know. But he is a sharp dude, and I'm sure he impressed in interviews, and we'll see. Ron Prince was pretty impressive in interviews too, and then that didn't go so well. But he had prior coaching experience too. We'll see how it all works out. The Bulls have agreed to trade Alex Caruso to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Josh Giddey. Caruso has been all-defensive team player twice in his career, ranks 4th in the NBA in steals last season, shot 41% from 3, averaged over 10 points last season. Giddey heads to Chicago. He is a very young, very talented guy. He scored, averaged 12 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists for the Thunder, had the best record in the West, but he did not play nearly that much in the playoffs, did Josh Giddey, which was interesting. The Thunder have a plethora of young players. They got tons of draft picks. This is where Josh Giddey is just the odd man out. He's not a great defender. He makes great passes at times, makes boneheaded passes, and he fell out of favor with the Thunder, and he had some off-the-court issues he had to deal with. Caruso is an older player, but he's a guy who helped the Lakers win a title, and then that was a big mistake the Lakers made letting him walk. And Alex Caruso is just absolutely a guy that will do what Drew Holiday does, quite honestly. He's not maybe as athletic, maybe not as good of an offensive player, but he is a perfect type of guy you need, and he's won a title and a ring. And I think it's a tremendous pickup for the Thunder, and they had an extra asset in Josh Giddey that they traded. I think it's a great move for the Bulls because they get a young player that can do a lot of different things, and who knows how great he can become. And I think 5 years from now, you might look back and go, wow, the Bulls got the best of that trade. Short term, it was great for the Thunder, but long term, it was definitely the right move for the Bulls. But I think Caruso is going to just slide in and fit like a glove at Oklahoma City. I think it's a terrific pickup for the Thunder, which I'm excited about because I think they need somebody with some experience, as we saw in the playoffs this year, that whether he comes off the bench, you're 6 man, you don't have to start. Even if he plays 15 minutes a game, but he provides that leadership off the bench, and he comes in, gives you a spark, plays great defense. He's going to take charges. He's going to do what Drew Holiday and Derek White do, except maybe not shoot it as much. But he's 41% from 3. It makes sense for both sides.
Absolutely. I mean,
the
you
Bulls
gotta,
are going nowhere.
Yeah, a lot of times when I see like the Thunder, who kind of were ahead of schedule this last year by being the number 1 seed, right, and having what they did, it kind of always reminds me a little bit about 14-15 Royals, right? And so it's like, go get a dude that can be a veteran and be on this team. And for some reason, as you were talking, like Alex Rios popped into my mind. It's like, go get a dude that can hit and can do some things for you here. This is a guy that can play some defense for you. He can hit a key shot every now and then for you. And obviously, if he's all defensive team the last 2 years and top 5 in the NBA in steals, that's a role player that's going to fill in real nice and can do different things that probably Josh Giddey, he has decent numbers and can do some things, but he's still young, like you say, making mistakes. And
maybe that's the guy that could have played Kyrie Irving and helped you win. Yeah, yeah. And you lost to Kyrie in the Mavericks.
And so get a dude that's steady. Is what you want, and it's going to bring pretty much the same type of energy and effort and everything that you need to get over maybe that hump every single night. You got to have those guys on your team. And I agree that Jrue Holiday would be an example of a guy like that maybe Caruso could compare to, because he's doing a lot of different things, helping a lot of different ways.
The Thunder are close.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a great piece of the puzzle to add, no doubt. And then we end with this. This came across on my Twitter page, and I try not to say this guy's name very often. When he first came on the airwaves on TV, I thought he was something different. I was okay with it initially, and I think his shtick has ran out with me about a decade ago. But and I think he becomes more and more annoying all the time. And I don't understand the love affair. I guess the love affair between media companies and this talking head have to be because people apparently watch his shows. I guess America wants this. Anyway, Stephen A. Smith, according to a report, wants $25 million a year from ESPN. I don't know if his contract's about up. I'd assume it is. ESPN is offering him $18 million. Listen, this guy shouldn't get paid more than $1.8 million or any of that, in my opinion. And now, I've never met the man, in fairness. He might be an unbelievable dude. Nice guy, great guy. But for me personally, and I know we all have our own taste, apparently America likes him a lot more than I do. But like I said, I liked him when he first came on, but I think it has run its course 1,000 times over. Him and Skip Bayless kind of got things really going in this negative direction with all these talking head shows, in my opinion. There's a few that are a little bit different and refreshing, but not too many. And it's just the same old stuff. But apparently America watches it, I guess, enough to where you still have sponsors. You can charge more. People watch it. And, of course, they're very good, these companies, at shoving these little clips from their shows all over social media. And there's clickbait. Or not it's kind of clickbait. People click on it, and then they share it, not watching the show. And they probably make residuals off of that, too. And clearly Stephen A. Smith has helped ESPN make some money, I guess. I mean, you wouldn't offer a guy $18 million a year if he wasn't helping you make money. And he is on way more than he should be. He's on too many things. That's the other thing. He's what's the word I'm looking for? Oversaturation. I don't need him to do boxing, basketball, baseball, football, and now he's suddenly expert on the WNBA from what I'm told. No, you're not. Okay. Next thing you know, he's going to come in and tell me about what all the Chiefs need to do in KU and K-State, and then tell me about my local high school. You don't know jack's crap about any of that, but that's how you shove it against people that didn't know any better. But here's the thing. This is insane. ESPN is offering him an $18 million per year offer, which is insane to start with. And that still might not be enough, that he wants $25 million annually, which I would start to say it's okay to always ask for more. It's always okay to ask for what you think you're worth. But does Stephen A. Smith really think he's worth $25 million a year? And if he does, then I think it's safe to say that something has gone to his head, and that would be his ego. And I saw him with a picture or video where he strolled into an NBA game acting like he's the NBA all-star greatest player of all time. And I think just looking at how he did that, maybe it was an act. Maybe he's very grounded. But that came across to me as a guy that thinks his stuff don't stink anymore. And that can happen when you get very, very successful. So, listen. It doesn't cost me a penny more. Well, maybe, I don't know. If ESPN wants to give him $25 million a year, it's their money. Go for it. But here's the thing. Do we really think ESPN, this is what they got to figure out, ESPN, but Disney owns ABC and ESPN. Disney and ESPN, ABC have cut a few deals, got out of a few deals, overextend themselves on a lot of these TV contracts, which they're still spending a lot of money. Mm-hmm. They've cut a lot of amazing people that do great work at ESPN, but then keep the guy that screams into your TV set all the time. They have cut lots of people that work longer than Stephen A. Smith at ESPN that have done probably way harder work, been there longer, been more loyal, so forth and so on, and now he's going to get $25 million. How many other people's jobs are going to be lost because they want to pay this guy $25 million? Or how about what if you just went ahead and tried it? and said, you know what, 18 million, walk away. If you can get 25 at Fox, so be it. Go reunite with Skip. We don't care. We'll do our own thing here. Even if we don't get as good a ratings, we still save 25 million. We can find somebody to do it for 5. You know, see, this goes back to the whole, it sounds weird to say, but it kind of goes back to how you run a team, right? And I mean, in a business. You know, if you run a team, that's a business. Mm-hmm. So I go back, I don't know, I know I've alluded to this a few times over the years, but I still go back to the Tyreek Hill situation. Is Tyreek Hill worth $30 million? Maybe, probably, in the league. Yeah, he's a great player, okay? Is he worth $30 million to keep and prevent you from doing other things? Could you possibly let him go, not have to pay the $30 million, take that $30 million, disperse it amongst a few other wide receivers, and get about the same production? And yeah, you may not get, now like go back to broadcasting. Now, if you walk away from Stephen A. Smith and say, oh, you know what, dude, we'll just walk away. We know our ratings might take a hit. We might not be able to charge as much for First Take or wherever the shows are. However, we've done the cost analysis here, and at 18 million, you're worth it. At 25 million, you're not. We can go find a couple people to do maybe a fresh, new type of show, or even if they scream at each other, at least it's a different voice and a different person. And if they really, really know their stuff, which Stephen A's been lazy in some things, and well, that's been obvious lately with some things that have been completely inaccurate and been proven to be a fool. You can go ahead and we can actually get 2 people. We might be able to hire 4 people and do 2 shows for the price of you. And we can save money. We might lose a little bit, but we can find enough to replace you with. And that's what the Chiefs did. The Chiefs went and got out Scantling. They went out and got Juju Smith-Schuster. They were able to help and get guys for their defense. And they were better off without Tyreek Hill, and that's been proven. That has been proven. Mm-hmm. The last year Tyreek Hill played, the Chiefs did not make the Super Bowl. Look it up. It's true. Stephen A. wouldn't know that, but it's true. I did it. I don't get paid $25 million a year, $18 million a year. And I'm going to say this right now, and I know people may say, wow, Wade, now you have an ego. We all have egos, so let's not act like we don't. I am very confident that I could do his job.
Yes.
Now, there are things that he does behind the scenes that I couldn't do, that I think I could learn how to do, okay? But in regards to the on-air stuff, I know I could do what he does. And I know that a lot of people that are sitting on their couches like to say, well, I could do play-by-play. That'd be easy. I could do Wade's job. I could easily do that. I could do that politician's job. I could easily be the president of the bank. And the answers to those things are no, you couldn't. Okay? Could you really try hard and learn to where you could do a decent job? Possibly. But I can tell you that I can come with strong takes, and I can tell you what, I can back them up with way more facts than Stephen A. Smith does. Now, here's the part I don't know. How much has he turned into a shill for ESPN to where people in his ear, and he's just regurgitating things that people tell him in his ear, not even thinking for himself? Now, that's something I wouldn't be able to handle because I'd want to speak for my own self. Yeah. And then if I overstepped, ESPN would probably tell me to get back in line, and I'd be like, well, then now what are you paying me for? Now I'm a puppet. And maybe that's what he's become, a puppet. So when I say I'm pretty sure I could do his job, I'm pretty sure I could get on TV in front of a camera and I could just go ahead and yell and scream. I mean, there's times I do it on this show, for crying out loud. But many times, most of the time when I do that on this show, if you listen to Sports Ticket on a regular basis, I have stuff to back up my arguments. Mm-hmm. And I do my research. I just don't show up and wait for somebody to tell me something in my ear and just assume it's a fact, because I would know it's not. And some of the things he said clearly means he doesn't do enough homework, or he is overworked and doesn't get a lot of sleep, and he's expected to do too much, and that too is an issue for the network. Because then he looks like a buffoon, and maybe it's just that he's overworked, and that's why he says, I'm worth $25 million a year. And I'm not saying he shouldn't ask for it, and I don't think he's worth that, but if ESPN deems him to be worth it, so be it. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. But it is astounding to me that a guy that basically yells and screams and when then he gets caught, as he did recently by Monica McNutt, and is absolutely looks like a Barney from the Flintstones. He can't talk. It's time for you maybe they just need to shave some of your responsibilities, give some other new fresh faces a look, and challenge you. And so, but it is amazing to me. We talk about the money with quarterbacks. We talk about the money with coaches. And we know, and I still have not figured out how CBS, NBC, ABC, all these studio shows somehow think that having 6 people, 5 people, 4 people that to talk for 2 minutes total at halftime and pregame and postgame and do a token interview with a player, how that makes more money for you. I've never understood it. Like, what did Phil Simms ever bring to the NFL today?
Nothing.
I don't know what he brings to him. I mean, why do you have to have 4 former jocks with James Brown? Why can't you have 2? I've never understood why you think more people watch because you have more guys that used to play. Like, Phil Simms wasn't no superstar. He was a good quarterback, won MVP, but in a Super Bowl. Boomer Esiason was a very good player. Nate Burleson, hell, he had a good career. He wasn't a star. I'm just going through, Bill Cowher, okay, good. He's a Super Bowl winning coach. To me, all you need is a host. Honestly, you only need 2 people. But if you have a host and you have a coach and a player, I get it. 3 people. But why in the world do you need 5, 6 people? Now, the exception would be inside the NBA. Barkley, Kenny Smith, Shaquille O'Neal, Ernie Johnson. But there's not 6 of them. Now they started plugging Draymond Green. I'm like, come on, guys, we're squeezing too many people in here now. Because then they start yelling and talking over each other, and that's not great either. But I've never understood why we need so many people to do what shouldn't be that hard of a job. And then you spend a whole bunch of extra money as well, which I don't think causes you to have better ratings. But maybe they know, I'm sure they know more than me, but I don't know. I don't think J.J. Watt replacing Phil Simms is going to suddenly shoot up the NFL Today's ratings. And I like J.J. Watt, and I like him more than Phil Simms. I don't know if offering this guy $10 million straight out of football. Now, I will say, getting Tom Brady, Fox spent a lot of money on Tom Brady. Everybody knows the GOAT. And I think there'll be a lot of people tune in that maybe some wouldn't to see how Tom Brady calls a game. I'm not going to lie, that's a pretty good one. Might be worth the money. We don't know. Might be worth the money for Fox that they got Tom Brady. But if it's Dan Orlovsky, who does a great job, by the way, do we tune in to watch it because of Dan Orlovsky? No. So why do we need 5 different people hosting a pre and post and a halftime show? Same thing with all these talking heads. Why do we need 2 people screaming at each other when Stephen A. Smith can just yell at it himself and have a pretty lady always, to throw him the softball, lob up questions or whatever it is they do on their show? Or why don't they have different? I don't watch the show on a regular basis, so you can tell. And I think, from what I understand, they probably have done that ever since Skip left to go to Fox. Had different people rotate in with him. And I know J.J. Redick did it and challenged him, and I love it. But I don't understand. I guess I would need to sit in on some meetings. But this is a beautiful country we live in when a guy that, by the way, was not an athlete, but he's hit it big, so good for him. And I'm not jealous of his success. That's awesome. I just don't see how he's worth that much money. I just don't.
No. There's a disconnect between me and the people that enjoy watching these kind of shows. So, I'm not with them. I don't get it. It's
like the younger generation now has grown up with it enough to where it's like they don't know what it's like not to have it, so they almost think like they have to have it.
Yeah, and I get all these clips in my inbox on Twitter sometimes.
Which is exactly what they want.
The only thing I ever see is the clips. I don't watch these shows, any of these shows, whether if it's ESPN, Fox, whatever it is. So for me, the disconnect is there, and I don't understand the appeal of sitting there and watching a guy scream for 2 hours.
Right.
It's never been my thing, and you can tell as you get deeper and deeper into some of these clips and you actually get them shared with you, it's so obvious that multiple times they're not thinking for themselves. They're just saying stuff that ESPN or Fox or whoever tells them to say. That this is the side of the argument that you need to be on today. You take this side of the argument. It's obvious.
What this is, if you ever were in high school and you were in debate, that's all this is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I was in debate, and you know what you do when you go to tournaments, you take the pro side, the con side, the negative pro, whatever they call it now. But back then, you took one side, the other side took a side. You debate it, even though you might have believed the other way, but you had to represent the one side, right? right? And then you could go into the next debate round and you'd have to do the completely flip to the other side of the topic and argument.
Yeah.
And that's all these guys do. Like, this is what society is bought into, is that they're like, oh, well, everything that Stephen A. Smith says, or Skip Bayless, or all these talking heads, I hate that I'm saying their names because I hate to give them publicity, but those guys, when they say these things, there are so many people out there that believe that everything they say they believe. No. Big part of this is an act. All right. Big part of it is an act. Like, if they talk before the shows, they have production meetings, and Stephen A. may sit there and say, well, I feel very strongly that LeBron is not the GOAT. And Shannon Sharp says, well, I feel very strongly that LeBron isn't the GOAT. Well, perfect. Now we got a show. But if they both say, we both agree that LeBron's the GOAT, well, but we're going to do this today on TV. We got not much to talk about. We need to fill some time on First Take. So we're going to go with LeBron versus MJ. Who's the greatest of all time? If they both agree that it's Jordan, or they both agree it's LeBron, there is no show, right?
No.
So you know what they do? And I know this from people I've heard, and it's obvious to me, but younger people don't catch on. What they're doing is one of them agrees that they can support the other side of the argument. So then if Shannon Sharp says, you know what, I'm all about Jordan, but, I can argue LeBron. I'll take that side. Stephen A. says, I'll take the Jordan side. Cool. Let's fly. Let's get our facts together. What are you going to present? Here's what I'm going to present. Good. I'm going to argue this point against you. Ooh, that would be good. People are going to eat that up. I'll bring this up that seems a little bit ridiculous, but people are going to really eat it up. Cool. I'm going to jump all over it. These are the type of discussions they do have. They do not just show up and argue. They have these meetings. The people that direct the show, produce the show, they put together the rundown. They have the topics they want to go over. Yes, they hopefully get some input from the people that are actually on TV, on the camera, that are doing the yelling. But they absolutely are looking for cold versus hot, blue versus red, left versus right. That's what our country's become, hasn't it? So that's, I think, part of the reason why these shows are so popular, because that's exactly what our country apparently wants. We vote 50-50 down the middle. Our politicians and elected leaders, elected officials, not leaders. I don't want to say that. Elected officials, they all, I think it's pretty clear, they like divisiveness. They like that right down the middle divide, because then you don't have to get maybe as much done. And this is no different with the talking heads on these talking shows, the debate stuff. One takes one side, one takes the other. It's pretty clear what they do. It's not that hard to see what they do. But there's so many people that eat this up and buy it, that believe that everything they say is what those guys believe. Like, oh, what an idiot, he said that. And you know what's funny? More than likely, they didn't even believe what they said. They knew it's part of the show. And they get a rise out of you. Then what happens is, what do? They post these little clips, and then your buddies start filling up your Twitter timeline, Facebook timeline, whatever social media apparatus you have. They start sending out these little clips that they're like, can you believe he said that? Man, I think he's crazy. There's no way I agree with that. And they try to suck you in.
Yeah.
And it works. It works. It gets people sucked in. So that's probably where Stephen A. Smith is worth $18 to $25 million a year, is that there's enough people that get sucked in, that buy it, that truly they don't understand it's an act part of the time, if not all the time, and they believe it as genuine TV. I guess it's probably no different than believing that WWE wrestling is real.
Yeah. And so, just to extend upon my point of when you become a puppet, basically like a living, screaming puppet like that.
Listen, and by the way, if you give me $25 million a year, I'll be any damn puppet you want.
Yeah. But when
I'm a sellout, I'll call it.
When you become that living, screaming puppet with everybody telling you what you should say, then it takes away from actually what you should be doing.
It takes away from credibility, too, a little bit.
It takes away from the fact that I know you are not prepared to go on here and speak off the cuff.
Right.
And the biggest example I have with that man is, I remember it was like 3 years ago. It was not on First Take, but he joined somebody else, and I saw this as a clip on Twitter, just like everything else I ever see. And it was actually part of a montage, I think, at the end of the year. But he went on some other show, and they were previewing a Chargers-Chiefs game coming up this weekend. Yeah. And he's off the cuff now. He don't have somebody talking in his ear. And he said the reason the Chiefs should be worried about the Chargers because of Hunter Henry at tight end. The man was injured and out for the year.
He also mentioned Derrick Johnson, who hadn't been playing for the Chiefs for 3 years.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, Hunter Henry has not been playing, and he's done for the season. Like, what are we doing here? I know you're not prepared to come on this show. They just want you on this show to sell it.
That's right.
And you're not here providing any actual real information that people can use. You are just talking right now. And that's why you said maybe a decade ago for you, With Stephen A., I remember him being actually on, not even on first take. Like, I would remember him watching, like, he was on the NBA part of the coverage. I remember him talking, for some reason, I kind of remember back even 04, 05, I think.
Which I kind of liked that at first.
I enjoyed his different take of everything on there, and it was just a new, fresh voice. But once First and 10 started on Cold Pizza, they started to do some different things there, and then this just came in from that, became what everything is now. And so it didn't take me but probably about 4 or 5 years to be done with that kind of program.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of anything like that I've watched in the last 15 years.
If you can notice, and this happened with Monica McNutt, which was terrific, but you can notice that, and it's the way with the two guys I mentioned, Stephen A. Smith and Skip, and it happens with other guys too, on these talking head shows. It's not completely scripted, but there's a rundown, but also it's scripted talking points. Okay, so it might not be word for word reading off a prompter. They're not. Okay, it might not be word for word what's coming in their ear from somebody else. It's not. I don't believe, but you have your talking points memorized. You have your script. It's not a word for word verbatim script, but it is a talking points rundown or script. Okay, does that make sense? And when all of a sudden somebody goes away off script.
It's like a script when you start a football game, right? These are the plays we're going to run, but you actually still have to go out and do it.
But what happens when somebody goes off script? And you can tell immediately with these yahoos.
Yeah.
When somebody goes off script, they can't even speak English.
No.
Like we just saw with Monica McNutt calling out Stephen A. Smith. And J.J. Redick did it to him too. Is when they go off script, they can't do their own thing because they have been so programmed. I don't think that was the case when he first started, but now they are so programmed to where they don't know how to handle something that is off script. And this applies to a lot of different things. It's called ad-libbing. And in movies and TV shows, you see the outtakes, right? And you've heard these great stories. Robin Williams was one of the greatest at this. And there were people that could flow with him. He would be going on a script and he knew his lines, but he would just suddenly go off script a little bit and they would roll with it. Jim Carrey did that with some movies as well because they're comedic geniuses. And so it might not have been a script, but they went with something. They felt something in the middle of it, acting a role or whatever. And they're like, you know what? We can reshoot it and do it the right way, but maybe we're going to try something different. And then the supporting cast might have to bounce off of it. And instead of being so scripted, it came across natural and it actually being part of a movie or a part of a show that was not originally supposed to be there. And I'm sure many times there are actors or comedians that have done off script and the people around them like, oh my God, well, that's not in the script and I memorized it. What do I do now? I can't think for myself. And I think that's exactly what happens to Stephen A. Smith and some of these talking heads. They've gotten to be puppets so much and lemmings that they all of a sudden, when you just go completely off the cuff, especially during their show, which they've practiced or whatever they've done, they don't know how to act. They don't know how to react. It's called ad-libbing. It's called just thinking out loud and going with your own personal opinion about something and saying, you know, I know the person in my ear is talking for me to say this, but wait a minute. I just realized Stephen A. Smith just told me he's been great at supporting WNBA. Well, where the hell you been the last 3 years? And the producer's probably in her ear going, no, disaster, mayday, Houston, we have a problem. And Stephen A. Smith is going, I support, commercial. It's off script. Yeah. It's off script. If you watch The Truman Show, if you watch that movie with Jim Carrey, what happens? I mean, that's a good example, really. That's a guy living a life. I don't want to ruin the show for you, but you've had plenty of time to watch it.
It's like The Sixth Sense the other day, right?
Right. But The Truman Show is a movie, but it's a show within a movie. That is what the movie's about. And Jim Carrey's character, he doesn't even know his whole life is on TV and everything around him is scripted. He's not scripted. He's the unknown commodity, but they kind of control him because of everybody around him, and that helps mold him. And then he finds out, I am part of a TV show and I have been since I'm a baby. And all of a sudden, what does he do? If you've seen this movie, you know what I'm talking about. And so then all of a sudden he tests some of these people and he goes off script after years where people have always known their lines and what to say. He goes off script and all of a sudden there's no smoothness or flow to any conversation from these people he was talking to. And that's exactly, to me, what these talking head shows are.
Yeah.
If you stay on point, you stay on their talking points, the show flows pretty good. They can control everything that they want to say, control the narrative, and get people all riled up, and then get your younger generation to send you all kinds of clips, and that's exactly what they want you to do. And you've bought into a bit of a lie is what it is. But when they go off that script and when they have to think for themselves and it's against their talking points, boy, it's just like the Truman Show, where all of a sudden, wait a minute, that's not my line. That's not your line. What are you doing?
What are we doing here?
Yeah, what are we doing here? Exactly. I can tell you on this show, we have never scripted anything.
No.
Now, do I have a rundown of topics?
Yep.
I do.
Yep.
Every single, it's where we need the video camera in studio. And I'm holding it up for the invisible camera, but maybe we are on like the Truman Show.
Yeah, maybe. I've thought about that sometimes. Like, is this the Truman Show that I'm living?
Could be. Yeah.
Nobody cares about me that much.
We everybody knows that there are government cameras in every office and they're watching us. But I have 7 topics to cover today. There were 7 things, at least, to get to today. We've hit all of them. And sometimes we go off on a tangent. This was not one of them on my rundown.
Yeah.
Notice how I was able to pivot to this, and you didn't know it was coming. And we had a conversation that was not scripted. We didn't have talking points laid out. We just simply rolled with it. And I think that we need more of that in the media. The only problem with TV is you only have so much time.
Yeah.
You have a limited amount of time. And then, of course, with all the commercials, they're trying to pay their bills. And Disney's obviously had to cut a whole bunch of people to pay some bills, but then want to pay a guy $25 million to scream at a camera. To each their own, I guess. But it is interesting to see how all that is evolved. But if you watch these shows on a regular basis, do me a favor. Watch really closely when somebody goes off script. And if you can't tell it's off script, then you really have been sucked into the tractor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All I got to say is, Stephen A. Smith, my man, I love you. And can you give me a low-interest loan? Hey, you know who else I love? Brent Venables. He is my new best friend. I also will ask him for a loan. You thought Stephen A. Smith's going to get a whole bunch of money, which $25 million a year is a hell of a lot more than Brent Venables is going to get. But Brent Venables is apparently agreeing to a new 6-year contract with Oklahoma. Going in the SEC, he's getting a significant raise. We don't know exactly how much more he's going to get. Venables was entering year 3 of his originally fully guaranteed 6-year, $43 million contract that would pay him $7.2 million this year. So we can tell you with confidence he will make more than $7.2 million this football season, the first in the SEC for OU. We don't know how much more, but he will make more. So there's another person I need to get to know and see if he can provide me with a low-interest loan. Hell, just call it a gift and make it it helps in your taxes, right? Tax write-off.
Congrats, Brent. Hope it falls apart.
And on that note, that's the end of the ticket.
State, regional, and national sports talk on your schedule. The Sports Ticket Podcast. Subscribe via Apple, Google, and TuneIn Podcasts or sunflowerstateradio.com.